I train at the Modern Mystery School, which is like the school of life.
And what is the focus of this school?
The path of know thyself. So this is an ancient pathway that's been around since the dawn of time. And if you know yourself, then all things are possible. If you truly know yourself as the light, world peace is possible.
Welcome to Seacoast Stories, a podcast about the people, businesses, and newsmakers that make the Seacoast an American hidden gem. I'm Trey Farkas, and on today's episode, how the story of a healer, a weird guy, and an even weirder school can help you finally become who you're supposed to. Today's story starts at New York University. It's August 2005 in the big city. The first video has been uploaded to YouTube. The iPod Nano is about to hit the shelves. And while Hurricane Katrina is ravaging the Gulf Coast, a fourth grade Troy is oblivious while he messages girls on AIM. Additionally, it's Alex Bynum's first day of college. In fact, it's her first time in New York. She never visited the school, but for a girl from Tennessee, the allure of the big city was enough to get her commitment. She dreams of becoming a vet one day, and she thinks NYU is the perfect place to pursue her dreams. But when her dad drops her off, she's horrified by what she sees. The trash on the streets, the sketchy people, the noises, the never-ending noises of the city that never sleeps. She starts shaking. She's petrified, so scared that she asks her dad to stay a few days as she gets adjusted. When he leaves, things don't get much better. Alex feels so overwhelmed and out of place, and she has several panic attacks during her only year at NYU. She then transfers to Tennessee, studies social work instead, and realizes it's her life's work to help people. Let's put a pin in that for now, because today, Alex Bynum is one of the top healers, not only on the Seacoast, but on the entire planet. Every year since 2018, the Modern Mystery School, more on that later, has voted Alex one of the top 20 spiritual guides in the world. That likely sounds weird to you, but maybe it doesn't. Why? Because the Seacoast is littered with healers. I swear, every new person I meet is into Reiki or sound baths or crystals or cacao ceremonies, you name it. I'm not knocking these people. I love learning about this kind of work because no matter how strange it all may sound, I definitely believe there's something to it. So as you listen to this conversation with Alex, I ask that you please keep an open mind and that you consider all the different ways people experience this one beautiful life we have. With that said, here's Alex with her story.
I came out of the womb ready to just help humanity. I don't know. I know everyone's not like that, but I was like that. And so I was just always helping people, doing all kinds of helping professions. And I really loved animals. I still love animals. I have a rescue dog and a rescue cat. And my sister was a human rights activist. She was telling me about the state of the world and, she would go overseas and come back and tell me about it. And I don't know, I think just our conversations about the world and how it was made me really want to help people. So I just switched from animals to people.
So at this point, when you had made that transition, in what ways did you want to help people beyond college? What were you thinking?
I didn't know. And so naturally, I was like, well, social work, I think they help people. So it was like, okay, I'll do that. I was a social worker only for a year. I seem to have a pattern here. And I burned out. It was just such a high stress job. I was resettling refugees from all over the world, low pay and very demanding. And I didn't know how to manage my own energy or how to balance that situation. So I was like, okay, well, maybe social work's not it. Ended up becoming a paralegal, but my job was to write affidavits for immigrants. I've always had a thing for different cultures and things like that. So I was writing the affidavits of people that were trying to come to America, which was really kind of like what you do, just sitting and listening to people's stories. Did that for about a year. Didn't feel like I wanted to be a lawyer. Then I switched to being an EMT, which is also a helping profession, because I thought, well, maybe the medical arena will work for me. That didn't work out. I became the patient on the scene. I was really overwhelmed by being an EMT. There were a lot of calls being an EMT that really affected me mentally. So I ended up leaving that career. I got let go for PTSD.
Okay, a lot there. I want to get to all that in a moment. The resettling refugees and then sitting with them, with immigrants and hearing their stories. I'm wondering how emotionally taxing was that for you, having to help people navigate coming to this country from other parts of the world?
It was very emotionally taxing because I didn't know how to manage my own energy at the time, which is obviously one of the things I do now. I didn't know how to not take on other people's experiences, how to take on the weight of what they were going through. Technically the job was like from 9 to 5, but if you're resettling a refugee family and they don't know how to get to the grocery store and they don't speak English, how are you going to go home at 5 knowing they have no way to like get food, or, they don't know how to use the bus? Or I have this one really vivid memory. We were resettling a family from Africa, and the little boy gets to the escalator at the airport. So we picked them up from the airport, and he was just absolutely petrified of the escalator. He had never seen an escalator in his life. Kind of like me, I was petrified of New York City at 17. But it just stood out in my mind, things I don't even think about. This little boy was like petrified just by the escalator. So it just shows the degree from what they were coming from.
And why did you feel such a call to help people? Was there something in your formative years? Was there a conversation? Was there a role model? Was there a turning point for you that inspired you?
I know I've always thought about this. I think part of it is just like how I am, like what inspires you to interview people. It's just kind of like part of your nature. But I'd say probably my sister, because she was just constantly talking about human rights work. And I knew that I couldn't, she would like go to third world countries and like be in war zones. And I was like, I'm not built for that. Like, that is not what I want to do. But yeah, I figured there was some way to help. So I had to find my own path.
So you were an EMT and you said you received a lot of calls that were scary. Can you remember any specific ones that?
I mean, yeah, my very first call was a father that had hung himself. So that was actually that was a very difficult call for me. That really woke me up. My colleagues at the time and I laughed because when the call came in over the speaker, I thought they said a headache, like, oh, please, report to this house for a headache. And they were saying a hanging. And so I was like, what's the problem? And everyone's just like looking at me. And I'm like, oh, okay. But when I got to that scene, what stood out the most was his daughter, obviously. So this man had hung himself in his basement. But his daughter was there, and his daughter was maybe 7 or 8 years old. And so the cries of that daughter, I can still hear them. Just the fact that someone got to that point has always been a motivator for me. Suicide, anyone that commits suicide is just, it's a really painful point, obviously, and a motivator not to let that happen, for others.
So how did you take that memory and other, I'm sure, similar calls that you received the rest of your time as an EMT and parlay those lessons learned into what you were going to do next?
Well, I just ended up having a lot of anxiety and PTSD for a while, to be honest. It wasn't like I always had anxiety, but now I was having like crippling anxiety and crippling PTSD at times.
How was that showing up in your day-to-day life? Was it disruptive, or like what did that look like?
Yeah, so I was depressed. I couldn't really be present with people. I couldn't work because, I was going to work as an EMT and the alarm would go off and I would just start panicking, So they did let me go because I was having trouble performing at the job. And that led me into therapy, which eventually led me into energy work.
Working in that industry, I imagine you have to become desensitized to things like you witnessed and you just were never able to tap into that?
Yeah. With respect to the people that work in that industry, there's a lot of people that use different things to escape, like alcohol or just different ways, because it's very hard to see those things and not be impacted by them. And I couldn't. I was too attached to the situations that I was going to. And so it was very hard for me to let go of what I saw or what I was experiencing.
In addition to the PTSD, it's my understanding that you also started having some serious health issues as well. What happened?
So after I was an EMT, things were not good for a while. So I got let go for PTSD. And then after that, I just started doing some dog walking because I needed something to do. I needed some form of a job. And I was like, I love animals. I'm just going to do some dog walking. And I was, really lost at that point, feeling really depressed and anxious. And one day I just really wasn't feeling well. And I didn't know. I called my ex-boyfriend. He's like, well, take your temperature. And I was like, it was 104. And I was like, it's 104. And he's like, we got to get you to the hospital. He was a paramedic. He was an ex-paramedic, he was my ex-boyfriend and a paramedic. And I got to the hospital and I had meningitis. So I landed at Mount Auburn Hospital for, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I was able to be let go from meningitis. Meningitis, it's a very difficult disease because your spine basically freezes up. So it's very hard to move. I didn't have family up here. I didn't really have that many friends, to be honest. So it was a very difficult time for me.
Why?
Because I was laying in a hospital bed. I'm someone who's very active. Laying in a hospital bed, can't do much, 20 something years old, depressed, anxious, feeling pretty suicidal at that point, no direction. Yeah, just feeling really lost. And so that's when I kind of had we call it self-initiation. Self-initiation is where you kind of get really humbled really fast and ask for help. And it was 3 a.m. and I was just laying in that hospital bed. And there was just this moment between me and God, if you don't like the term God, source, whatever term you want to use. Yeah, we had a conversation and I said, God, please use me, or I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah, please, I have all this potential inside of myself. I knew that I had a lot of potential, but it was so covered in trauma and anxiety that I couldn't get out of my own way. And then now I had meningitis, which was 1, 2, 3 KO. So I just had a conversation with God and was like, please help me with my life. Or just, I don't really want to be here. So yeah, we had that conversation. And then, I don't know, I think 6 months later, I met the weird guy.
Wow. Well, I can speak for all of us, Alex, when I say that I am so glad you're still here and able to tell this story. So let's continue on with it. Who is the weird guy, and what role did he play in your introduction to the world of healing?
Well, I started with Reiki, and a lot of people know what Reiki is. It feels really good and it uses energy. And then one day I met this man and I thought he was the weirdest man I'd ever met in my entire life. And he was so weird to me that I couldn't stop thinking about how weird this man was. And he wasn't necessarily doing anything that was weird or dressed weird, but it was just what he was saying. He was saying that he did spiritual work and that he was a guide. And there was something about him. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with him. And so we had met at a networking event, and I had no intention of ever going to his office or pursuing anything. But there was something about him that I needed to know more.
So what made him so weird?
Well, he said that he was a guide he's like, hi, I'm a spiritual guide in the Modern Mystery School. And for some reason, it just felt so weird to me. I was like, what is he even talking about? This was so outside of my paradigm, my reality. I was like, who does this? What is this profession? Is this a real thing? And his energy was just very different than anything I'd ever been around. So I was like, okay.
Okay, so you met the weird guy and you were drawn to him for some reason.
Correct. And repulsed by him at the same time.
What was so appealing? Why did you have to learn more?
Well, I was having a lot of resistance to learning more, but I had a friend that really encouraged me to go to his meditation class. So I ended up going to his meditation class, and I felt this man's name, by the way, is Jordan Bain. And I had meditated before, but I'd never had an experience with energy like that before. And I had even done Reiki before, which is an energy experience, but there was something very different. And I was able to meditate so easily. The room was so captivating. I was like, there's something here for me. I don't know what it is, but there's a key here for me.
What exactly did you feel in this experience that was so different than Reiki and previous energy work? Why was this such a light bulb moment for you?
You know how words can be very limiting? It's so hard to explain when you feel something in your soul. And I just knew. And I know for a podcaster that must be frustrating, but yeah, I just felt it in my soul. I was like, there's something here for me. And I don't know how to verbalize it more than that.
So from that point, what did you want to do? Where did you want your path to take you?
Well, at that point, I was like, I need to know what this is, right? What is this? What is this guy dealing out? So I did a healing with him. It was called the life activation. It's also called the DNA activation. And when I did that healing, I'd never had an energy experience like that. It felt like Reiki on like steroids to me. And I didn't know what he was doing. I just knew it was good and that it was helping me and that it was bringing more. I could just like feel the light pouring into me. I was like, I knew that things were going to be okay.
So what exactly was he doing?
Well, I know now. I didn't know then.
Yeah.
He was doing a life activation, which resets the energy field. So it helps you to really come back to like who you are at your core. So he was, just kind of like resetting me and adding more light to me to help me to find my way.
Coming up, how Alex has passed these teachings onto thousands of people around the world. Plus, she describes my energy field. Stay with us. This is Seacoast Stories. Hey everyone, it's Troy. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who nominated me for Catapult Seacoast Top 10, the annual award show that chooses 10 standout young professionals on the Seacoast. It means the world to me that so many of you value the work that I do here, and I promise I'll keep making you proud. If you want to attend the award ceremony on November 13th at the press room, I've put the link in the show notes of today's episode. If you didn't vote for me, don't worry, I still love you. Instead, you can help out by leaving a review of Seacoast Stories on Apple Podcasts. Just go to the Purple Podcast app, find Seacoast Stories, scroll to the bottom of the page, and select Write a Review. The whole process will take 30 seconds, I promise. I thank you so much again for voting for me, for leaving reviews, and for being here today. I really appreciate it. Now back to today's story.
What is an energy field?
Well, most people think they're just a physical body. So most people think, this structure is all that we are. Your energy body is much bigger than that. So a lot of people have heard of the term aura. There's a soul body. You have your spirit. So you're much more vast than you think. So he was working on different lines in the body, like the chakra lines. There's something called like magnetic lines, etheric energy, different things. He was rebalancing those lines for me so I could come home to myself.
And so how do our energy fields get cluttered, get corrupted?
Just by being here on Earth, I think. We all have trauma, or 99.99% of people have some form of trauma. Trauma, just being alive in the world, impacts your energy field. Just walking down the street, I mean, if you walk past maybe someone that's not making the best decisions, that impacts your energy field. You're taking your energy field, through that situation. It's going to impact you.
So how would you have described your energy field in the years leading up to meeting the weird guy, Jordan?
Blocked, stuck, chaotic, wanting the light, but not knowing how to rebalance myself, reset myself. I'd done a lot of workshops. I'd done a lot of therapy. Those things are wonderful. I had taken different medicines to try to help myself. But it felt like I was looking for something, like I was really looking for like a missing piece.
So when you say he was resetting your energy, what methods was he using to do that? Like, describe to the listener what this physically looks like.
What it physically looks like?
Yeah.
Well, so Jordan's trained in many things. He's trained as a life activation practitioner. So it's a formal training. It's something that's been passed down for thousands of years. So he was just doing what he was, trained. He went through this training, so he was able to perform the modality. But what it looks like is he's not actually touching you, and yet you're feeling him pull, release blocks or work with energy, and you're just like feeling better. It's a sitting and standing modality. So.
And how long does a session last?
I usually, book out 90 minutes for a client, but that includes talking. So, I want people to feel comfortable before. The session itself is a little over an hour, I'd say.
Okay, so he performs life activation on you.
And I knew it was good. And I was like, what is this? I need this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what steps did you take after that to pursue this?
I was super hungry. So, I just went one step to the next. So I started receiving healings with him regularly. And then I did the Empower Thyself initiation.
Which is what?
Which is a 2-day training where you're initiated into your higher self. So Jordan, facilitated this training for me to help me to anchor my higher self, which is why I get to be who I am today. That training really helped me. Most people describe me as like one of the calmest people they've ever met, which is actually really funny.
I believe that.
And I'm like, this amount of peace took a lot of work, So having my higher self anchored in this ancient tradition, it just really worked for me. And I knew I wanted to do that for other people. It was like the missing piece, because I was like, I'm here to help humanity. And here's, this is how I'm going to do it.
When you say your higher self, what exactly does that mean?
My best self, my God self.
And what does the higher self version of Alex Bynum look like? What kind of person is she?
You're looking at her. She's calm, beautiful. I'm always progressing and working towards more and more being that higher self. But having so much of it anchored now is so different than how I used to live.
Do you still deal with that anxiety and that PTSD, or have you mastered that and overcome it?
That's a great question. I would say with healing, they say, healing has layers to it. And I would say the majority of those layers are gone. Like I'm sitting here podcasting with you and not having an anxiety attack. So that's pretty amazing. And also just, taking action. Like, I've helped a lot of people. And because of that, I've just, I've really realized it's not even really about me. Like a lot of times, like just being on this podcast is about, it's just like getting the message out. Like I'm here to serve. And so because I'm here to serve and because it's not about me, it takes away a lot of the anxiety.
So what was your training / education process like for this?
Yeah, so I'm still training. I train at the Modern Mystery School, which is like the school of life. My mom makes this joke. She always says, like, well, when are you going to graduate? I'm like, Mom, it's the school of life. It doesn't really work that way.
Where is this school?
It's in Toronto. Yeah. So I've been back and forth to Toronto, Canada for 11 years doing various trainings to be able to provide these healings for other people.
And what is the focus of this school?
The path of know thyself. So this is an ancient pathway that's been around since the dawn of time. And if you know yourself, then all things are possible. If you truly know yourself as the light, world peace is possible. If people know themselves as the light, you're not going to kill, you're not going to steal, you're going to love others and love yourself. So that path of know thyself is it's a pretty powerful path to walk, to want to get rid of all the stuff that isn't you. So that's the goal.
And after 11 years of training there, do you feel you know thyself?
I know thyself better than I used to know thyself. It's a path though, right? So
Yeah.
Yes, and there's more to go. There's still things in my ego that I need to take care of. Every time I'm triggered, that's a sign that I'm not healed yet. So when I'm triggered, it's just a sign that there's more work to do. So, I'm trying to think of an example where I was triggered recently. I don't have a good example coming to mind. Sorry, Troy.
Well, that's because you've got it all figured out.
No, I actually want to make that clear. I'm not a guru or anything like that. It's just, we say like, I've just been walking up this mountain and you only have to be like one step in front of someone else to pull them up. And so, I just constantly reaching my hand back. And then I have the people in front of me who are reaching their hand back to pull me up too. So I don't claim any like guru status or anything like that. It's just like I'm on the path and it'd be cool if others wanted to be on the path too. There's a lot of people on the path for know thyself.
I'm going to try to not mess up this verbiage. Is it you are trained in the lineage of King Solomon?
Correct.
What does that mean?
It means I facilitate ancient activations and initiations for self-mastery using the power of the lineage of King Solomon. King Solomon's like a whole conversation, but King Solomon was a very powerful and wise king who wanted the best for humanity. And so he really wanted a universal system so that we could all heal. And so his goal during his life was to find this universal system so that someone could come back to themselves and really understand themselves. And so that's what he did. And so the power of what I do comes from that lineage. It doesn't come from Alex Bynum. It comes from the lineage that I'm trained in. And so I facilitate that power and people really feel that.
So you got trained in this lineage at the school in Toronto. And then once you had that, what was your vision, your dream for how you would bring this to people?
So I really just wanted to share it because it was like, I was eating the best slice of cake ever. And I was like, don't you want a piece too? So I just wanted to share it. It's not super well known in the Boston area. It's well known up in New Hampshire. There's really no one up here doing this. So yeah, I didn't necessarily have a plan. I had a vision for people to at least have the choice, like the choice to try it or not, because if you don't know it exists, that's a problem. At least if you know it exists, you have a choice if you want to pursue it or not.
And what was your family and friends' reaction at this time as you were leaving behind traditional, quote, normal jobs to pursue this thing that, let's be honest, is not normal?
Yeah, I think my parents are still a little horrified. My dad, I think, is still hoping I'll be a lawyer or a doctor one day. My mom, she is a very Southern Christian lady, but she saw, eventually it got to a point where she saw the testimonials and she saw the people thanking me, and she knows that it's good. So she's very proud of that. And she's very proud of me at this point because she knows that she raised me. She knew that I wanted to help the world. So I think she's very proud.
And if people in your life come to you and they're going through something, a relationship problem, a work problem, whatever, do you try to gently guide them toward the spiritual path and to opening their mind to these kinds of modalities, or do you not do that?
I have a weird job.
You do
So
have a
I
weird
don't
job.
ever tell people what to do. So, they asked me, should I break up with my boyfriend? I'm like, I don't know. Do you think you should break up with your boyfriend? So usually the thing about the mystery school is you have all of the answers. So like I said, I'm not a guru. So, Troy, you have all the answers within you, but do you know how to access those answers? So if you don't know how to access those answers, that's a problem, right? You need to get to like the core of what's true for you. I was guiding someone the other day and I was like, well, you never want to make your decision, like your final decision, from like a reaction place. You want to stand in your power when you make this decision to leave this relationship, right? You want to be crystal clear. You want to know, like, I want to leave this relationship. It's always about like the person coming to that answer for themselves, but maybe they need a healing modality to help them to unlock, something that's blocked within them, that's stopping them or causing confusion or causing chaos in their mind or whatever.
So Empowering Path is the business. When did this officially start?
I mean, as soon as I could. I was doing Reiki and I was doing like half personal training, half Reiki in 2013. So I kind of call that as like my start date because I did start with Reiki. But the lineage, working with the tools in the lineage around 2014. So it's been about 10 years, 11 years, something like that.
And you started this in the Boston area. How did you get to the Boston area?
So after college, I had some friends getting married up here. It was one of the top 10 weddings of the year at like Fenway Park or something.
Oh, wow.
It was really cool. And I ended up basically just going to their wedding and deciding to stay.
And what brought you to the Seacoast?
COVID. During COVID, I was living in like the Newburyport area, which is already pretty close to Portsmouth. But I had gotten an office up here at the time with my ex-boyfriend. And there was a lot of opportunity up here. Like it felt like New Hampshire is hungry for the light. And there was just an opportunity to share all this training, everything that I've studied, and wanted to share that with this area.
The testimonials that you have on your website and social media are pretty powerful. A lot of people, to sum it up, say, you changed my life, Alex, immediately after the life activation or the initiation. A lot of people say that you completely opened up their eyes and showed them the light. Why do you think your clients feel that way about you and the work that you're doing?
Because it works. If I knew something that worked better, I'd be doing that, because my whole, as we've been talking about, my whole life has been what serves the most. And for me, this was just like my unique way to serve the most. So these modalities that I facilitate, they're no joke. They really do help a person to pivot. They really do help a person to overcome their stuff if they're willing to put in some work. And so healing is a journey, but the clients that put in the work, yeah, they'll say that. They'll come sit here and give you a testimonial. It's funny. It's like we're always our biggest testimonial. I know we don't have a picture of what I used to look like, but it was rough back then. So for me to be who I am today is my life is kind of a miracle at this point.
And so the seacoasters that come to you in search of the light, and maybe you're not allowed to divulge this, maybe this is confidential, but what are the things that people come to you, the problems that they're having that they need your help being guided through?
I mean, what do you think? It's relationship issues, anxiety, depression, job issues. It's usually how it starts. And then it becomes, oh, I need to heal myself. One of the universal laws is as within, so without. So whatever is going on inside of you gets reflected in your outside world. But people don't really understand that. They just see that I don't like my job. My relationship isn't working, right? And then at some point, pointing the finger doesn't really work anymore. And usually that's when people come to me because they're like, I need to do something. I have to change. Something's got to change. So it's the typical stuff, like relationship and jobs, probably the most, but relationships is a good one.
I'm curious how you present yourself to the world. Here's what I mean. As we've established, this is a bit out there, not normalized. This kind of work that you're doing, gaining in popularity. I think people are definitely opening their minds to spirituality and other forms of existence, but still not the mainstream. So I'm wondering, when you're just out and about in the world and you're at networking events or you're meeting people, you were at Apple Harvest Festival, when you're just meeting people in environments like that and people say, hey, nice to meet you. Alex, what do you do? What do you say?
I mean, one of my prayers is always like, please help me speak what they need to hear. So it depends on who I'm talking to. So with energetic gifts, a lot of times you can just kind of pick up on or maybe scan what would resonate for someone. So sometimes I'll meet someone and I'll say, I'm a meditation instructor, right? Sometimes I'll meet someone and, I feel like, they need to hear I'm a spiritual guide in the modern mystery school like Jordan did for me years ago. It's really, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I just have to just quickly make a decision what I feel would be the most helpful for them to hear.
Are you self-conscious at all about how people perceive you?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, we all want to be liked and loved. So I'm not going to lie and say I don't care what people think about me, but I care less and less. Because when you're on a mission, you don't care as much. And that mission is to like help humanity. So
you've done on your social media, you do a good level of writing and you put out a lot of very interesting messages. And I just tweet out a few anecdotes that I want to talk to you about. We've talked a lot on this podcast about mental health. It's something that comes up for a lot of people in their stories. And you wrote that we are not in a mental health crisis, but a spiritual crisis. What exactly do you mean by that?
There's a heavy focus on mental health right now, but, mental health is one component. Spiritual health, I mean, if you don't have your spiritual health, if you don't really have any understanding of who you are, that can lead to like a mental health crisis or lead to a lot of mental health problems. We'll even say sometimes, things that are going on of a physical or mental nature are spiritual problems, which is what you're referring to. Like, for example, I had a thyroid condition for years. I no longer have to take meds, which is amazing because most people have to take thyroid meds for their entire life. The issue was I wasn't on a spiritual level, was that I was not expressing myself. I was not using my voice. And because of that, I started, doing podcasts. I started putting myself out there more. And as I healed that expression, I needed less and less medication. So that was a spiritual problem. That was not for me, that was not a thyroid problem. That was a spiritual problem that I wasn't using my expression.
And in our day-to-day lives, those of us who are dealing with mental health issues, of which there are many, this kind of work, seeing healers, it's expensive. Maybe people can't afford to do it and they need to self-initiate, perhaps, like you once did. What advice would you give to someone to help themselves heal spiritually, if not with the assistance of someone else?
Well, I do want to clarify, I'm not knocking therapy or anything like that. I definitely think that's important to have a sounding board. But in terms of like spiritual healing, I do a lot for the community. Like I do free Reiki, come find me or come to a meditation class. These things don't have to cost a lot of money. They can be an inexpensive way for you to, start that spiritual journey. Meditation is often seen as a mental health tool, I believe. So come to a meditation class, you can see how that goes for you. And if you do want to do more. So, yeah.
I have some people in my life who are going through some things. I won't name them. And I really feel that they could benefit from connecting to themselves more. Obviously, we all can, but some of these people are completely closed off to that notion, refuse to go inward, perhaps afraid of what they'll find. If I want to give a loving nudge to someone in my life to start exploring their relationships with themselves and that spiritual side of them, what's the starting point? Or can you not change someone who doesn't want to be changed?
Can you accept that they're maybe not ready at this time, and just always leave the door open for them, that they know that they can come to you when they are? Or that'd probably be my best advice, because once you start imposing things on people, now you're getting into
right.
That's not what I do. That's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right. So, hey, this exists. It's here if you want it. It's kind of it. And, everyone's walking their own journey. So, not everyone has to walk the path of know thyself, but I would love for people to know it exists.
I want to ask you about something else that you wrote, but I want to go back to something that we were talking about. You said when you're introducing yourself to people, you take a scan quickly of people's energy fields. Is that something that any one of us can do, or is that something because you're trained in this work that you can do? But is that something that any of us could do?
There's this misconception that only certain people are psychic, or only certain people can read energy. It's actually it's a crappy misconception. Like, we're all born with these gifts. For some, they're more awake than others. It's kind of like being a mathematician. Like, some of us are born more adept at math, and some of us have to work really hard at it. So yeah, it's something anyone can do. You might have to work harder at it than someone else. But for sure, we're all energy beings, so anybody can do it.
And what's the energy that you're getting from me right now?
You?
Yeah.
You're very curious, right? You're very self-assured, which is good. It's good. It's a good quality.
Okay. I like this.
You're like, tell me more about myself. Yeah, I feel, I feel like you're on a path. You're on a path.
Aren't we all?
We're all on a path, but I feel like your path is leading you somewhere good.
I think you're right. Thank you for hyping me up. You also wrote that there is no greater gift than feeling free. Why do you say that?
Because all I ever wanted was to be myself. That's all I ever wanted. And I felt so trapped, and the anxiety and, all that stuff was really like, I just didn't feel free within myself. And so the more, it is a path of freedom, because it's very freeing to accept yourself and to really know who you are at the end of the day, like really feel that connection to your own light and to your core. And so, yeah, the greatest gift I could ever help someone else with is for them to discover who they are. That doesn't mean they're going to do what I do. I just want them to go do what they're here to do. If you're here to be the greatest podcaster ever, let's go.
Knowing what you know now and where you are in your life today, if you could speak to 23-year-old Alex, who was dealing with everything that she was dealing with then, was so
in the
fearful,
hospital,
in the hospital, depressed, anxious, unsure of the right career path, what would you say to that girl?
Buckle up, kiddo. I had a life coach when I was in my 20s, right? Because I was searching. He's like, Alex, you literally ask the universe every day, what is my purpose? Do you really think the universe is not going to answer you? I was literally walking around just like, what am I here to do? Like, what is my purpose? I don't know. And he's like, yeah, at some point you're going to get an answer, And so I did get an answer when I was 25. So I would tell, I guess I would tell her to keep asking questions. Questions are like, open a lot of doors.
What are you most proud of in the last 11 years?
All the people I've helped. I'm really proud of that. It's pretty simple. All the transformations I've seen. No one can take that No one can take that from me. You know, at the end of the day, it's like I've literally seen people go from like homeless to making six figures just because they wanted to heal themselves, or seen people like crippled, like guarded, open up and just be able to like love other people. I've seen miracles. So because I've seen miracles, I'm super proud of that.
If you could wave a magic wand.
I have a magic wand. That's what I do.
Yeah, it's right in the corner. If you could wave a magic wand and fix one problem in the world tomorrow, what would you choose to do?
I mean, people don't know themselves. They think they're their opinions. They think that they are their identity. They think that they're right and other people are wrong. I would definitely say, okay, like let's do a course in know thyself. Like, do you actually know who you are? Because, you know, at the core is love and light.
That transitions perfectly into our final question, Alex. We ask the same final question at the end of the episode every week to every guest, and I will ask it to you. Alex.
Troy.
What is the mission that you are on right now?
I mean, the mission is world peace. And I believe that that's possible because I've been able to find peace within myself. So if I can do it, other people can do it. There is a way out of the chaos. And, you know, I know not everyone is going to do this, but I think if enough of us do it, find that peace, heal ourselves, we can really shift the world. That's my mission.
That is a beautiful mission from Alex Bynum, one of the top healers in the world. If you'd like to check out some of her offerings, just visit empoweringpath.com or at empoweringpath on Instagram, the links to which are in today's show notes. That's also it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please let me know by leaving me a review on Apple Podcasts or by submitting a rating on Spotify. I'm finally back on the Seacoast after a week plus in Los Angeles, so I'll be bopping around town a lot this week because I missed it so much. So if you see me, perhaps at Flamingo's Coffee, Ohana Kitchen, or at the Portsmouth Halloween Parade on Thursday, please stop me and say hi. I would love to hear your story. Until next week, everybody, live free or die.